Welcome back to the Odys Podcast. This is our second episode, and this time we're having Emilia Gardner, who is a former lawyer who became a full-time website builder and affiliate marketer. We've talked about her favorite strategies, her path, and many things in between. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, whether you're watching it on YouTube, listening to it on Spotify, or on any other streaming platform. It's really nice to meet you. It's really nice to see you almost in person.
These days with COVID, this is about as good as it gets half the time.
Yeah. So just to shoot things up right away, why did you decide to quit your job as a lawyer?
That's a great question. It has absolutely nothing to do with online business. I actually made a decision to leave the practice of law in steps. I had an opportunity to move into from my firm practice into working with a startup. And then from there, I decided to take some time off to raise kids. Mm-hmm. And it was while I was at home raising kids, feeling that I should be doing something. This feels weird being at home, just raising kids. And that's when I fell into the whole rabbit hole of making money online.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And why did you decide to look into website building in particular?
I definitely didn't start there. I did everything, right? When somebody starts, they see, the ad on YouTube and they're like, you could do this and you can do this. So it was a long time of shiny object syndrome. So I did funnels, right? Like I fell down the ClickFunnels rabbit hole. I did email marketing, solo ads, like solo ads traffic. I started a drop shipping store, right? Drop shipping, just really not high quality stuff from China and using Facebook ads. Literally like every strategy that there probably is for people just getting started. I wrote Kindle ebooks for KDP, oh, wow. Literally everything. And what I discovered was that I didn't want customers, if that makes sense. I didn't really want to, because of my lifestyle, because my kids are my focus, that I didn't want to be tied to my phone and I didn't want to be tied to the computer. And when you have customers who need customer service, just saying, I'm going to go camping for 2 weeks, that's not an option unless you hire somebody. And when you're just getting started, it's not like you can really afford to have employees. Mm-hmm. And so having websites that are monetized with affiliate offers or display ads, I don't want to say it's passive because it's not, mm-hmm. but it removes that element of having to be present right here every single day to be customer service.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about working online is that you get to actually see your kids grow up. I've been freelancing for almost 13 years. I've been working with texts in particular, and it was a really great opportunity to see my son grow up first, then to see my daughter grow up, and it's really a special time. It helps to create a bond that you can't achieve when you're working 9 to 5. You're just always there.
It's not something you can do later either. Yeah. Like, okay, when I get done with this project, I will come volunteer in your class when you're a kindergartner. But that might not happen because they're past that phase. There's no going back.
Yeah. Well, speaking of working online, website building and affiliate marketing and everything of that sort, well, most of it is known to be mostly dominated by men. So how did you cope with it in the beginning?
Well, I'm going to politely disagree with you.
Okay.
With the statement that SEO, that niche websites, that this business is dominated by men.
Okay.
I think if you go on YouTube and you look at all the YouTube creators, you will notice that about blogging, or at least about search engine optimization, that most of the creators are male. Mm-hmm. But if you search blogging in general, or you look at other specific kinds of blogging, that you will find that there are many women, in fact, that women often dominate, I'm going to put up my air quotes, dominate the results for those topics, specifically the blogging topics. So there's search engine optimization, SEO, which seems to be, that's where a lot of the men are creating, but blogging in general, I invite you, Vladimir, or anybody who's listening to this, to just search blogging to see how many women have created content on not just YouTube, but on Pinterest, on Facebook, on Instagram. And you will find many bloggers there. And in fact, I would even suggest that women were at the forefront of this. Mom blogs, I feel like, were one of the first places that people legitimately made money with affiliate offers, because they were doing things like, hey, I made this craft, and here are the places where you could go to buy these things. So yes, there are many men in the space, but I will say that I think a lot of the women who are crushing it are not taking the time to go and start teaching it. Mm-hmm. They're too busy making money doing the thing that they are supposed to be doing. Uh-huh. And many of them are also juggling, lots of hats, right? They're also parents or they're caregivers. And so they're crushing it, and they've got too much stuff to do to go over here and say, I'm going to start a course about blogging. I mean, when you're making 6 figures a month, I mean, is a course really necessary? Mm-hmm. You could just keep doing what you're doing and just make more money.
Yeah. So sounds reasonable.
So that's I would just politely disagree. I think that is much more balanced than people think.
Yeah, so it's just a general impression because of the course presence and lecture presence that is created by men.
I would also, though, suggest that maybe, especially if it's men who are we often get served content by Google, by YouTube, that Google thinks that we'll like. Mm-hmm. And Google looks at our past preferences and knows that maybe you like to consume content that was created by men. Mm-hmm. So if you're not seeing a lot of women in your Facebook feed or in your YouTube feed, that could be YouTube doing its best to serve you what it thinks you want. Mm-hmm. And it creates this impression that it's only men, because I see in my feed tons of female creators about blogging. And so when you say, oh, it's dominated by men, I'm like, really?
Well, yeah, that's an impression that I've got. Well,
that's true. If you go to conferences, right, you go to, Matt Diggity's conference in Chiang Mai, or you might go to SEO World here, SEO World there. It's not hard to notice that most of the presenters are men. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like all you have to do is look, right? Like you see, okay, but a lot of the presenters are also Caucasian, white men.
Yeah. And
we know that there are SEOs around the world who are crushing it in Africa, in Asia, especially Asia, right? Mm-hmm. And even in tier 1 countries, where United States, Canada, that they're not everybody is white, but that's just, and there's many reasons. We don't have to argue why that is or who or how, but just because that's the lineup at a conference doesn't mean that that's a reality.
Mm-hmm. So you don't feel any pressure in these terms?
I think I'm old enough that I don't care.
Okay.
I think maybe if it was 20 years ago and I would be feeling a lot of like, oh, looking around like, I'm the only one here, and do I have the right to be here? I don't feel that anymore. I'm here and I'm going to do what I want, how I want. And maybe my path doesn't look like your path, right? Like my path doesn't look like some of these guys or gals who are just like crushing it. And they've been crushing it since like month 1, right? Like some people, their first year, they've just like to the moon. Mm-hmm. And that's not my path. And I think most of our paths go like this, right? Like, totally. They don't look like that. And maybe 20 years ago, I would have questioned what I'm doing. But now there's just so much in my life that's happening that makes me fortunate that I am doing what I'm doing and doing it this way. And it gives me opportunities to continue to pursue the things that I really want to invest my time in that maybe don't necessarily make the most money. I mean, I chased the dollar already. I was a lawyer. I did that for 10 years. And I don't, it's not that I don't think that money is important, because obviously that's how we eat, right? That's why my kids' toys are like all over the floor over here, is because I have income coming in, but it's just my perspective is different. And we could blame that on old age too. I'm old.
No, everything seems reasonable, and I totally agree with you about money. It's not just, you just need to make money to make a living.
Everybody has to,
Yep.
unless you're born rich that's the way it is.
Yeah. All right. Getting back to website building, what would you call or name your main principles in building a viable website?
What would I call them? Like, would I come up with a super awesome superhero name, like the Mega Method? Something with Raider, like Forum Raider or Tomb Raider, or what?
What are the principles that you follow in the process of creating a viable website?
So you're thinking strategically, like what are the technical aspects of building a website? Well, I think there are many creators. None of it is anything that I have pioneered, and I haven't taken the time to come up with my own name for it. I believe that my strategy is the do it wrong till you get it right strategy. I think that starting is the most important thing that a person can do. And it's kind of like you hear dentists, for example. Dentists get asked all the time, like, what is the best toothpaste? What is the best toothbrush? And like to a man or a woman, they will respond, the one that you use. Doesn't matter which one. Is it the one that you use? So you say, what's the best strategy? What's the best thing to do? Or what's the best niche to start? And for me, it is whichever one gets you started and whichever strategy keeps you working consistently for the long term, because none of this stuff is going to take off. Niche websites don't take off in 30 days unless you're using a strategy that isn't going to work long term. So mine is the get started and grind it out strategy. It's pick something specific and keep doing that. Not for a week, not for 30 days, not for 6 months, not for 12 months. Dig into it and stay with it. And the reason that I know this is because I was a person who spent the first 24 months, 2 years thinking, there's got to be an easier way. There's got to be an easier way. This is too much work. There's got to be a shortcut. There's got to be, like, look at all these men on YouTube posting about how you could make money in 30 days if you would just do this. And it turns out the primary way for me to have had success is to pick one thing, one strategy, and then grind it out until I started having some success. And anytime I start thinking about doing something else, like, ooh, on YouTube, that guy's doing this and that looks great, I have to look at my projects and say, okay, when this project reaches a certain level of success, then I can go investigate that. So you could say, oh, is it long tail keywords? Or, oh, is it local SEO? Or is it, like picking a specific niche? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing all that. Sure. I'm doing all of those things, right? All of the things. I'm picking from the things that my colleagues in the field are doing. Like I follow Morten Storgard, our friend, Passive Income Geek. I do some of the things he does. I follow Matt Diggity, and I'm learning from him and doing some of the things that he does. I mean, John Dykstra, I talked to him and followed him, some of the things that he does. I'm just trying them all. But within the same strategy, right? I'm not both trying to grow niche websites and run Facebook ads. I don't have the skills and abilities and the time to become an expert in both of those things. So my strategy is continue grinding on one particular thing until it works. And it might take a year. It might take 5 years. And I feel like that's where I'm at, right? Like I'm not in the, $100,000 a month mark. That's because I have not ground it out long enough to become an expert in it. And that's what I'm doing. That is my strategy, is keep testing things, keep trying things, keep getting things wrong, because I'm sure as heck doing that all the time. Getting away from just following like the rote advice from people. It's great advice, like to learn from people. That's awesome. But say, okay, I want to test this for myself. I want to know if this is going to work, not just because that other guy or gal said that it worked. Will it work for me? And how does it work? So that when somebody asks me later, because I'm on YouTube as well, live streaming, people say, oh, hey, have you ever done this? And I can say, why, yes, I have done this and it didn't work. Or it did work, but or it worked exactly like they said. And I'm not going to say you should do it too, because that's on them, but I'm saying here was my experience and this is how it played out. And I think that is way more valuable.
Yeah, that you just get to gain more experience and find your own way. Just like they say, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate that when people say fake it till you make it, because then it sort of gets in the way of you being your honest self. So like on YouTube, for example, people often do this where they pop on and they start a YouTube channel and they're like, I want to make videos about blogging, right? But they have been blogging for a month. And so then they find themselves making videos about expert keyword research strategies because they think that will make them successful. And the hard part is that the average YouTube viewer is as experienced as them or even more, and they can see through that. And maybe what would be better would be to go there and be honest and say, this is my first month. This is the strategy I'm using. You can use it too if you want, but I've been using it for a month and here are my results, versus saying, this is the expert opinion on this. And everybody knows it's not true. They can just see through it. They can just see that you're not being honest and open. And not to say that people shouldn't make those kinds of videos, because that's part of the process, making videos and see what happens. But in my experience, being yourself and being okay, being vulnerable to say, yeah, that didn't work. I tried this, that didn't work, is valuable even to experienced creators, right? Experienced people who have been on YouTube or in this business for a long time. I mean, we don't need another keyword research video, honestly. There's like 6 million of them. But what we need is connection. We need to know that we're not alone. We need to know what is working for you, so that maybe that's why we would try it. What didn't work and why. And anybody of any experience level can contribute that and gain followers, build a YouTube channel and build a real audience of people that are warm to them, rather than, they subscribe and then they watch one video and then they never come back again, which then kills your YouTube channel. When you have all these people who subscribe and never click on any of your thumbnails when they get served to them, that's a sign to YouTube that they should kill your momentum and growth.
Yeah, well, your path, what you told about your method, let's say, your strategy about...
Sure, the grinded out strategy.
Yeah, the grinded out strategy.
I'm gonna get a trademark lawyer to go and make me some shirts.
Sounds good. I'll get that one. Because it really reminded me of how I started with writing. The last job before I started writing was mounting cables. Just installing speakers in supermarkets, video security stuff, all that kind of stuff, all those kinds of things. And then the financial crisis hit in 2009. And I've had a friend who was a copywriter at that moment. And he said, hey, sometimes I just don't have the time to do my work. So what do you think if I just send you some of it and you just see for yourself if you can do it? This is how I started. And I had no idea what to do. It was just, okay, I'll try. And eventually I just ended up doing this for a living, And eventually I ended up here in Odys and continued doing it. And I love doing this job. I love working with text. Speaking of YouTube videos and all those instructionals, I think I've never actually went through any tutorials or all of this thing, any of these things. Just grinded it out for myself. Just found my own way, and now I'm hosting a podcast.
Right, but it didn't happen in 1 year.
Absolutely. Almost 14 years in the making.
And that's the hard thing about this content that most of us consume on social media, is that it seems easier than it is. It seems faster than it is. And then people feel like they're failing. And so they don't ever get the opportunity to succeed because they have these expectations that are just not reasonable at all. Maybe that did work for that person, but we don't necessarily know the backstory that led to that. What did they do for the 10 years leading up to that? How many times did they try and fail? And much of this content is created with a goal in mind. I mean, for people that are using it as a funnel to a product, as a funnel to some other purpose, trying to just get subscribers. I mean, we all know in the YouTube space that thumbnails that have dollar signs on them do better. Like dollar signs, with amount like $25,000 or $379.27. Like that is going to pull people in, and it has a purpose. We're not just on YouTube because we just like it. I mean, well, I sort of am, but most people aren't.
Yeah. Let's get back to the websites again. Well, in particular, the domains. One thing I wanted to ask you as the first person that I'm actually discussing this with, when building sites on new domains versus aged domains, what are the highest benefits and drawbacks in each case?
Oh my gosh, how long do you have? I mean, I could literally talk about this topic for days, and I'm a really hard guest because if you just let me go, I'll just talk, right? We'll be here for 2 hours if you like. So here's the thing. I'm not ready to be an expert on either of those topics. I've built several sites on fresh domains, and then recently, I'm looking at the month, in December, January, I did partner with Odys to try out my first age domain. The problem is that it's not as simple as just comparing apples to apples, because every domain, every niche, every topic is different. And so if I could say that I had run head-to-head tests in the same niche with the same content, then maybe I could tell you, oh, hey, I know that this is the answer to that question. I think that, and the experiment that I'm running now with the domain that I did get from Odys is in a very competitive niche. Right? So it's a competitive niche that's almost entirely outsourced or with AI content using Jasper. So you'd say, oh, well, what is the result from that? What does it mean? And it's hard to say that I know what it means because it's really difficult. It's not apples to apples. It's like apples to grapefruit or apples to zucchini or apples to that tree over there because they're so different. What I also think is happening is it's making it difficult to have strong opinions about it because of the way Google has gone about doing its business this year. So indexing situations. So just indexing in general with new projects, either on fresh domains or on age domains. And it's so inconsistent with the updates and the way updates have played out for everyone and what that has done for rankings and shuffling. And so you say, okay, I have progress going. And then Google comes in and says, hey, by the way, you don't have snippets anymore. And you're like, oh, great. Is that related to the domain? Is that related to links or is it not? Is it related to the content that I have posted on there or not? Is it related to some other link that I don't even know about because this is an age domain that I cannot control for? So the experience I generally have with fresh domains, at least in the last 2 years, is that I start a site on a fresh domain and Google pretty much ignores it for somewhere between 2 and 9 months. And then Google will decide, it's a good time to bring you out. Let's do it. Let's go. And how long that takes depends upon the competitiveness of the niche. Right. So waiting for this site to build authority in whatever way, shape, or form you believe authority could be built, either the depth of content, the breadth of the topics, the types and number of keywords that the site has overall, the links that go to it. I mean, I really am not a huge, I don't say believer, but the EAT, what creates experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Do you have an author box or not? I'm not convinced that matters one way or another, except for when you have a human reviewer, right? But in general, based upon the competitiveness of that and your authority for your site, eventually somewhere between months 2 and 9, that's going to take off. With an age domain, I've heard many stories where friends have, posted all this content in month 1, and then the site took off like a rocket, and they're a believer, right? It's age domains all the way, and I didn't have that experience. I put up, 100 articles in a couple months on a new site, and Google refused to index any of it.
Oh.
Right? Most of it, I think 19 out of 100 or so articles were indexed. And Google said they were indexed, right? They were all green in the Google Search Console. But in my SERPRobot account, they were all not found, right? And so you say, okay, Google, what? This doesn't make sense. They're not in the index. I can search for them. They don't show up. They should be there at least somewhere in the top 200, I think, right? And they don't end up there. And so then I went through May, right? And I was like feeling really bad about the project. And then the May update rolled out there at the end of May, and it didn't. I don't know if it gave the site a boost, but what ended up happening was those articles within 24 hours all indexed.
Oh, wow.
Like 99% of them hit the index. So they shifted in Google Search Console from green, right? So, it's indexed, to discovered, but not indexed, and then crawled, but not indexed, and then shifted basically within a short period of time to indexed. And now the site is getting traffic. And you say, okay, what did I do wrong first to put me in the realm of not indexed, the shadow world of Google indexing? And then what about the site, or what was done by Google in May to then cause those articles to be indexed? And then what has caused them in the shuffling of what's been going on in the various updates through August, September. I saw a note on Twitter either yesterday or this morning that Google is shuffling things again, right? And so how are you supposed to say that an age domain at this point is any better than a fresh domain? Because most of the time we don't know what happened yesterday, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So this goes back to my my initial thoughts about niche websites is if somebody were to say, should you do a fresh domain or should you do an age domain? I say you should do them both. You should test them out, and you should find out for yourself, with the caveat that it's going to depend on the niche that you choose. So if you say, age domains are bad. I tried it once and nothing worked. I'm like, there's more to it than just the particular domain that you have chosen. There's so much more going on there. And you can't just decide in even 9 or 12 months that a project is successful anymore, because there's so much working either for and against you to make something work.
So it's always a complex story. There's no this.
Well, that's my problem though with these summary social media content, where it just concludes for you that, good or bad. Craig, I think it was Craig Campbell on Twitter, because I recently joined Twitter. He posted something the other day that I actually responded to, and he's like, there's no one way to do SEO. Like there's not one single way to build a successful portfolio. There are many ways to do it. But if you get it stuck in your mind that there's only one way, and then that one way you try doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it's a scam, that you won't be successful eventually. It just means that particular strategy at that particular moment didn't work. And maybe you should change it up, or maybe you should double down and try again and use everything that you learned this last time to see if you can make it work this next time. Yeah.
Speaking of SEO, we at Odys, we're often putting a huge emphasis on the SEO value of the domains that we sell, especially the backlinks, the so-called link juice. What is your experience and opinion with and opinion about using the backlinks that are already there in the domain?
Well, as we know, I've only had one real experience with an age domain. And I would love to say that I thought that links didn't matter, but that's not true. I think links do matter, but I think we're seeing a trend over time that links is not the end all, right? You can see lately in the SERPs that sites that don't really have a really high DA, if you're using the Moz rank or the various ranks with Ahrefs, that sites that don't necessarily have the strongest authority can rank for things. And you say, what is that, or why is that, and how is that, and how is Google determining that? And I think that is some of what is being adjusted, because Google is looking for I'm going to put up my air quotes, the most helpful content. And I mean, who really knows what that means, truly? But links are definitely important, and links can help it, but I don't think links are the end all in every situation. So a lot of people love to just create a ton of content really fast and then blast a ton of links at it, and then boom, like success. And I don't know that that is is going to be the foolproof strategy going forward, because of the shifts that Google is making as it determines how much authority a particular site has, or what is a good user experience for a user.
Well, it all sounds like we keep getting back to your strategy to dealing with websites, building websites, promoting them, and well, for example, Keith Mint of Minted Empire, and Carl Broadbent of the Affiliate Gathering.
Yeah, I know Keith and Carl. How's it going, man? If you're listening.
I hope they will listen. Well, they've also had case studies. Well, Keith is actually still writing a case study in one of our domains. And the thing that they've brought up in these case studies, especially Keith, is that you just have to continue grinding and have to just keep doing what you're doing until you get the results you want. And Keith especially had this sort of like I wouldn't say that it was a decline, because there wasn't any substantial growth at that moment, but the statistics didn't look quite well for a while in his reports, until he decided to move this domain to a silo on his another website, and then it all started growing, started showing positive statistics. It really brings us back to that concept. And I don't know if you've listened to our first episode with Alex Drew, our CEO.
No, I missed it, but now I will have to. You will shame me into it.
All right. Well, there's one thing he said, that you should treat your website like a business, not like a side hustle, because it won't last. And yeah, well, it had to be a question.
No. I think that is such an important perspective shift, right? And somebody explained it. A good friend of mine explained this to me as well, especially because I get shiny object syndrome. I love starting sites. I just really like it. And he's like, well, if it were a business, would a business owner, like a shoe shop, right? Like, let's say somebody went out and opened a shoe shop on Main Street down in your city. Would you go and open another shoe shop before the first shoe shop was successful? No way. You would never do it. You wouldn't have the time or the capital or the momentum or the energy to run a second store before the first store was not just like working, but like really successful. But we think of websites as projects, like hobbies, like going out and mowing the lawn. I can do that anytime, whatever. I'll just go and do it, and I'll have started another website. But if you look at it like a business, you would never do that. You would have all these goals that would have to be reached, because the danger overextending yourself and maybe doing long-lasting financial harm to yourself is so great. And I think that that's a great perspective for folks that really want to make this a business long-term. And it's something I've had to come to. Oh, yes. I've had to come to that turn in my career here also, is to really make sure that the projects I'm leaving behind are in a good place before I move on, because otherwise I just know that it won't happen.
All right. Comparing the risks involved with being a lawyer and a website builder or affiliate marketer, what would you consider the more risky job, and why?
That's a really broad question, to be honest, because there are many things that can be risked. There's financial risk. There's career risk. There is the risks to your health and life and safety. There are risks to your happiness and things. And so you say, how they're not apples to apples, right? They're apples to trees, pretty much, because they're so different. When you work for someone else, potentially you have less financial risk, right? Because you are insulated by the existence of someone else being in charge of business, someone else having the responsibility of the lights, the heat, the taxes of all the things in your job is to do the business, is to make the money, right? So there may be less financial risk on a day-to-day basis or a month-to-month basis about whether or not there is money coming in. And when you're working online, when this is your full-time thing, at any moment, Google could come in and just, karate chop it like, and all of a sudden your full-time income stream where you have no real backup or safety net is just gone, right? And that's less likely to happen when you're working as a lawyer in someone else's firm. But on the other hand, if you're working for yourself and you are the person who is in charge of the lights, the heat, the taxes, the employee salaries, then I would argue that it is probably equally at risk, because a bad month could send you under. There's not necessarily a safety net. So they are similar, depending on how you go about being a lawyer versus go about being an owner of a series of portfolios that are monetized using organic search traffic from Google. So they are similar and different. I think that they have their unique impacts upon things like family and quality of life. And people will say, this seems more mentally taxing than this. And I think it goes back to, again, the kind of law that you practice, or the strategy that you employ, and also how hard you apply yourself. So I don't think there's an overarching conclusory statement that I can say that this is more riskier than this, because it really just depends, right? There's not one way to practice law, and there's not one way to build a portfolio of websites.
From the current perspective, like from the point in your life that you're in right now, what seems a more enjoyable thing to do to you?
I'm old. I'm old, right? We talked about this earlier. I chased the dollar already, and I'm still chasing it now. But the things that are most important to me are spending time with my family, and also keeping an eye on the fact that since I'm old, I'm not going to last forever, and doing some of the things that I did to myself as far as working in my 20s is not necessarily going to set me up to survive all that long into my golden years. So quality of life is really important to me. So I look at the practice of law, especially in really high stress practice areas, to be a more of a risk to the things that I care about most, because it takes, a law practice will take me away from my family. They will cause me to be stressed and really struggle to take care of myself. And then I don't feel like my best self when I am fully engaged at work. And then my kids are in daycare. I don't know what they're doing. I don't necessarily know what is going on in their life. And we have people helping, with the shopping and with the, I'm making the money, but I'm not engaged at home. So for me, I would look at this point in my life, that the practice of law is more risky to the things I care about the most. Mm-hmm. Although I'm not going to say that niche websites are secure. You have to go into this, especially if you're doing it full time, like fully knowing that you need to have money saved in case things go sideways. And I think that, and I do this, is really important to continue to maintain contacts and network in the event that you need to find another way to support your family, and you need to be putting money away in retirement, just like you would for a job, but you've got to be the one who's in charge of doing it. And you can address and prepare for all levels of risk. You can't just say, one's better than the other. And I think that anymore, that working for someone else is just as big a risk as working for yourself. There's no guarantee that if you work for somebody for 30 years that you're going to get the gold watch at retirement, and the pension is still going to be there. The stock market, doing its thing. There's a lot of people right now who have worked for their whole lives for someone, and they want to retire, and they don't have enough money to do it. They relied upon this established way of getting to the end, and it's not secure for them, and they're being faced with continuing to work at 70, or maybe for even the rest of their lives, or having to make decisions to compromise maybe where they live or their medical care. And it's just putting families in a really tough situation. So I would much rather to be able to have a hand and control in this. Maybe I do it wrong. Maybe at the end I will regret it, but at least I was participating in it and I wasn't leaving it to someone else to manage.
So it's just there's time and place for everything, and the time for you being a lawyer has passed. Now it's time for
maybe
other things.
I mean, for now.
Yeah,
right?
for now. I mean, at this particular point in time.
I mean, that's the thing. Like people, a lot of them use their years of energy and physical health to build their businesses, right? Build their empire, and they have their families during that time, and they direct everything to that golden moment of retirement, which is awesome, right? We all have to have money and have a plan if we ever want to stop working. But in the meantime, when you're doing that, there's a lot of things that are lost. And for me, I think I would much rather work maybe longer than miss out on all of these things, because here pretty soon, my kids are going to be grown. They're going to have families of their own. They don't need me to be at home on a Monday at 10 o'clock. They're going to be doing their own stuff. That's a great time to work. And so maybe my retirement account doesn't look like yours or my neighbors or someone else who I used to practice law with. But at the same time, I'm sitting in my messy living room with toys strewn all over the place. And that's not a bad place for me to be because of what I value.
Given the opportunity to work at a really seriously successful, stable legal firm at this point, would you go back to practice the law or not?
Right now, if tomorrow somebody walked up with an offer letter saying, we will pay you $500,000 a year to come practice law full time for us, I would say no.
Because you want to spend your time with
because
the family.
Of the things that I value. Because it would take me away from the things that are the most important to me. And yeah, I don't even think I would feel bad. I don't even think I would feel tempted, because I've already lived that life. You can see over here in the corner my son's legs.
Yeah.
Right here.
That's it.
I wouldn't be sitting here right now having this conversation with you, and I wouldn't be able to spend time with them. I mean, if for that amount of money, right? Especially where I live, it's not like it's New York City. That would be the equivalent of a gigantic salary in a major city. They're going to expect you to be there, right? They're not going to say, oh, that's part-time work. That's sun up to sundown kind of salary. And I would miss out on everything. Son of mine, you're in
Hi
the
there.
corner. Will you come here? Will you come sit over here? We're almost done, sweetie.
Yeah, we're almost done.
Yeah, that's the thing, though, right? It really comes down to I'm old, right? Mold is dirt now. You can't tell. There's a couple of gray hairs like up here and around. But I got started in this.
I got more gray hair.
This gig. Yeah, I just got started in this late, right? Like I didn't start in my 20s, and I wish that I had, because man, how much further along would I be? But I mean, I don't even have to think about it. We say, oh, would you go do this or would you go do that? Like if it compromises my ability to pick my kids up from school at the end of the day, no.
Not worth it.
No, thank you. Not now. Maybe someday when they're taking care of themselves, then sure, but no.
Sounds absolutely reasonable to me. I'm a parent, so I understand you.
So that you understand, right? It's just what do I value? And that's one of the reasons why I think I'm maybe more committed than ever to this business, even though it seems like it may be more risky than ever. Like it used to be that if we thought that if you were utilizing black hat techniques or illegal techniques or spammy techniques, that those are the people who were at risk, right? If you built a white hat site and you built links naturally or didn't even pay attention to it and you just tried to write good articles, that you would be safe from the Google, right? The Google monster. And we've been shown in the last 2 years that that's no longer the case, right? There's a lot of talk about, securing your traffic and owning your traffic, getting a list, like getting control over your business so that you would be more insulated from the Google monster. But even knowing that, for me, I would still much rather do this and double down and do this as my primary focus, because it enables me to really serve the other things that are important, that I have identified now. I've had time to identify in my old age that maybe in my early 20s I would not have realized would be so important to me. I just didn't know any better, right? Like young and dumb, like, following the path that other people had laid out for you and just really thinking, okay, I know what I want. And turns out I didn't. And I thought I knew how I would feel when my kids came, and turns out I didn't. I thought that I knew what I wanted to have, right? Like what would be important to me to have, like to hold in my hands, like my stuff. Turns out I didn't.
Sounds like just a regular life path,
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is I'm just a regular person. Really. And I think that all of us are, and the people who are really successful are just regular people, but they can, and I'm definitely not one of these people, but there are other people in our space who are doing really well. And, people treat them like they're like a
demigods,
celebrity, and like put them on a pedestal and really look up to them, and, take everything that they have to say. And turns out these are just people who did a couple things. One, they started before us. Two, they experimented and learned and grew, and they didn't give up. Right. Like I said this to another podcaster not long ago. I've said this actually a couple of times, and I may have offended people, and those who heard those other podcasts will probably remember me doing this, but I'm pretty sure I don't want to say I yelled at Doug Cunnington, but I said, you're not any smarter than me. We were just talking about, like how people become successful. And, it really is that anybody who's willing to put in the time, in the effort, I think, to learn, can do this regardless of whatever whatever test scores they got when they were in high school or in college, or it's not rocket science. It really isn't. It's just people who are willing to be persistent can be successful. And maybe that's just like, I'm a believer in like the communities and like supporting each other. And maybe that's just my mindset, but I guess I have to believe that for myself, right? Because if I don't believe that for myself, then what hope do I have? If I look at these people and say they have something that I do not, then that's a non-starter thing. They have something, these glorious people, turns out they don't have something. They just have been in it longer and have been gritty as heck and persistent and all of the things. And if I truly believe that I can do that too, it just might not look the same. Probably because I'm not willing to do 18 hours a day for the years that it will take, because of this little person who is here in the room with me. I'm just not willing to do it. So
sounds absolutely reasonable. And out of the blue question, what's your favorite book?
My favorite all time?
Yeah, favorite of all time. Your personal goat. My
personal goat. See, so I don't watch TV really. I read, and I pretty much read all the time. And so that I'm waffling right now while I'm choosing, and I will regret what I have selected. I would probably say, you've asked me right now, and I've waffled long enough to say The Hobbit.
The Hobbit. Oh, nice.
I would say the Hobbit by J.R. Not J.K. Rowling, J.R. You got me totally on the spot. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And it's not just because I think it's the greatest work of all time. It's because I really enjoyed reading it with my children. And I did not expect them to just fall in love with it the way that they have. And so it's been such an enjoyable experience, right, from beginning to end, to read for myself or to read it aloud. And there are so many characters in it that have voices that can be made and done. And then we listened to the audiobook, which was performed by a couple different actors, and then watching it on TV. So for me, it's the whole package.
Sounds good. Amazing. I love The Hobbit. I love Tolkien. And I really love the way he actually he approached the world creation. I mean, the Middle Earth and everything related to it. The depth of the characters he created, the depth of the plot. Everything is just it's a textbook for for writers.
Yeah, well, I definitely won't say that that the trilogy were my favorite. I think that they spent way too long in the Shire in the Fellowship of the Ring. All right, the first half of the book is just about the hobbits, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that really necessary? Because I know the hobbits were necessary at the end, and then the Two Towers was basically like an intermission book, right? Like, let's just spend a whole time building up to the third book. So there was definitely some grit and persistence required to tackle those texts. But yes, I will agree that he was a master world builder, and like the language, he basically created a whole language, like not just for the books, but actually like off the books, like is a language that's speakable and is really phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Phenomenable. I went to say phenomenal and
Phenomenal
and formidable were the two words I was trying to smush together. Contribution to the literary world.
Yeah, I've recently seen a short video of him writing something in Elvish. He was actually writing some phrase. I just don't remember what it was, but I was really struck by this short vid because I knew he created an actual language that could be studied and spoken. I've never seen it in action except for the films. You know, I was like, whoa, he was really good. Yeah.
Most of us come home from a hard day's work and make some dinner and watch some Netflix. And this guy in his spare time created a whole language and created an alternate universe and wrote their stories and their histories back to the beginning of time.
Yeah, speak of persistence,
Right? Persistence and grit for a phenomenal product for our world.
You gotta put a trademark on this word.
Right? It's another t-shirt. I'm just gonna add it to the stack.
All right. Just one last question for you, Emilia. What would your advice be for the beginner online entrepreneurs? Website builders, affiliate marketers, SEO experts, whoever starts doing this thing online.
Pick one thing and stick with it, and longer than you think. So I guess two things I will say. One is pick one thing and grind it out on that one thing, and then find some people who are doing that one thing and do it along with them. Because I think it's really easy to sit in this house or in your office or on your phone or in a cafe and be alone. And I think that one of the primary reasons I'm still here, I'm looking at the year right now. I'm in my 5th year doing this. And I honestly don't think I would still be doing this, but for the fact that I made friends along the way that I talk to every single day, like literally every single day, that are doing the same thing. And they keep me in the headspace of what it is that our goals are. And you see or hear other people who are doing the work that you're supposed to be doing, and it's motivational. You can artificially create that. A lot of people will do it by listening to podcasts. So they keep their headspace on SEO or on building websites by putting those things like in their ear as they are at work or running or in the morning or at night. And you can create that, but I don't think it's as powerful as having people that you either meet with regularly or that you talk to either on chat or on Zoom. And I think that people who pick one thing and then find a group to support them for the first 12 months of doing it are more likely to be still doing that work in 12 months than the people who just say, I'm going to do this. And then, a month later, they're like, I forget why I decided to do this. And
okay. Thank you. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for this conversation. It was really fun.
No, it was really enjoyable. Thank you very much for having me. Do I get to be the first guest after Alex?
Yep. You're the first guest after Alex.
That's awesome. So I'm kind of like a guinea pig here. Like you're testing things out on me to see what works.
There are so many things related to what we're doing that you can't just speak about domains, H domains, and there are just so many things, whether it's marketing or economics or website building or psychology or even neuroscience. I mean, there's so much tied into it. So yeah, we just want to talk it out with whoever we can.
Yeah, well, I as a podcast host myself, although I only really podcasted for about a year solid, because then I realized that I was not taking my own advice about focusing. But I did, I think, 50 or 60 episodes, mostly of interviews, talking with other people in our space. And it was personally, I think, way more valuable for myself than honestly it probably was for any of the people who listened or who I actually interviewed, because it was an opportunity to gain those types of contacts that maybe if I had just cold emailed or cold DM'd somebody, just like, let's go on Zoom, they'd be like, I don't have time for that. I got stuff to do. But the minute it becomes a podcast, they're like, ooh, this is a great opportunity. They don't even care how many listeners you have, because it's an opportunity to go on a podcast. And so I spoke to many of the people in our space that I currently admire and look up to, for an hour, sometimes even more. Like at the end of the podcast, they would stay on with me and talk, just shoot the breeze. And people pay big money for that, right? And you're like, wow, what a great opportunity to gain some knowledge and connections that continue to this day to serve me.
Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for spending your time with me right here, right now. And
it's been an absolute pleasure. And I love that I get to be a guinea pig on the Odys podcast. It's been really fun to get to know you. I did not know you before this, and I had never spoken to you. And it's been a great conversation to have with another human, because as we know, that is kind of rare given what it is that we do.